Okay, good evening again, and if I could have your attention, we'll kick this meeting off. Ooh, fancy, thank you. Let's well, before we begin with the prayer, just want to say thank you all for being here this evening. Grateful to have such a nice turnout. I imagine we'll still have some people trickling in. At any time during the meeting, feel free to get up and grab refresh your drink or to have a bar. The bathrooms are through this door here. You won't bother me to sneak by, and you're off camera, so just barely. Let's begin with the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Dear Lord, thank you so much for the gift of this beautiful day, for the gift of our life, gift of our faith, gift of a new Holy Father, Pope Leo, and for all of your many blessings. We commend this meeting and this evening to you. We pray that you would bless our time together, bless this presentation and the conversation that ensues. Please bless our parish to always make decisions which please you, which bless our people, and which make it as easy as possible for those who do not yet know you and do not yet love you to encounter you here. We ask for the help and the prayers of Our Lady as together we pray. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Saint Gabriel the Archangel, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Am I controlling the slides, Tianyu? Okay, thank you. Grateful to Tianyu Lei for being our tech person this evening. Just like to cover the agenda for this evening. I've already kind of done the introduction and prayer. I'll be giving a little bit of background of what's brought us to this day, and then I'll introduce the other people on the renovation team that are most directly working on the renovations here at the church. At that point, I'll turn it over to one of those team members to lead us through the scope of the work that we are going to be doing upstairs in the church. We will cover the cost of that work and some related considerations, the schedule, and then there will be time at the end for questions and answers. This is how that will work. You have note cards on your table, so please go ahead and distribute the pens that are there and make sure that everybody has a couple note cards so that as the presentation goes along, you can be writing down your questions as you're listening. We will not take questions during the presentation unless it's regarding a fire or an active shooter, which I hope we won't have to deal with here. Okay, sorry, I have a weird sense of humor. But at the end of the presentation, the team will take a few minutes to gather those cards, to review them and to kind of sort them out. And then we'll cover as many of them as we have time for. You're obviously welcome to leave at any point. We are hoping that the presentation and, did we say the presentation and the questions takes an hour? That the presentation takes an hour. So once we get to Q&A, stay for as long as you like or as long as you find it interesting after that, but you're very welcome to leave at that point. So let's jump in. Where we've been. I don't need to tell you that our beautiful church and grounds here at Main Street is historic. You know that the church building that we're in was built in 1953 to 54. And I don't know if you noticed this winter, but something mysterious happened in the church this winter. As I was walking around, the asbestos tile up there, it all just started to pop up under my feet and to crumble into pieces. Our historic campus in many ways has a lot of work that needs to be done to bring it up to 2025. So I know that's no surprise to you. As you know, a couple of years ago, we did sell our other church, the formerly St. John the Evangelist, and we have received the proceeds for that sale. And at that time, one of the things I communicated to the parish was that some of those funds would be used to beautify and renovate this church building. because we just didn't have enough resources as a parish to maintain 2 buildings, nor did we need them at the time. So now that those resources have been consolidated, we'll be using them to do the work that's needed here. We made an initial pass at doing renovations. That was about a year. Was that 2 years ago now? Was it just a year ago? It was 2 years ago. My gosh, the time has flown. And it's been a very eventful time for our parish. And due to a number of factors, we had to put those renovations on hold. And among other things, the cost of construction has gone up incredibly. And we also realized that some of the things we had been thinking of doing at the parish, especially work at the office, wasn't quite as necessary in the way that we had thought. And so we took some time to regroup and reconsider and to form a team that would help us discern the best use of the parish's resources and where those renovations are most needed. To that end, I formed a strategic planning team. Some of the members of that team are here this evening. And together we discussed what would be the priorities of the work that we did here at the campus. After we closed the other church, and in fact, as we were closing it, there were a lot of things that needed to be done. These are some of the things that we did here so far to make this entire campus workable for us as a parish. We converted what used to be the old rectory and then became the parish offices, and then became the Handmaids of the Heart of Jesus' temporary convent, and then became nothing for a while, back into parish offices, thanks to some wonderful parish volunteers. We've put up signage around so that people can find their way to the office and other places. In the last year and a half, we've replaced the roofs on the church and that office building. You, I'm sure, know that the roof of the church was leaking, and you can just look up in the church and see the water damage there on the ceiling. A beautiful railing and platform was installed in the choir loft by some volunteers here at the parish. The room formerly known as the Cry Room, and which has now been renamed the Family Room, to have a more positive spin on crying children, has undergone a major, or I'd say a minor facelift, but it's a lot more pleasant of a space to be in. The room formerly known as the library, which is now called, at least for now, the lower level meeting room. Eventually, probably who knows what, maybe the Father Goman Sala. We haven't discussed that yet, but if you haven't been into that room, a beautiful renovation was done in there just recently, thanks to a parishioner who purchased some new furniture and paid for some other fixtures there. We got a beautiful new tabernacle for the Adoration Chapel, which allows for the Eucharist to be exposed without having to handle it. Pretty slick. I know, I'm sure all of you have seen that now. I'm sure you've been in the Adoration Chapel. If you haven't, you should take a look. And most significantly, we have renovated the social hall. When we met to discuss those social hall renovations about, I don't know, 9 months ago or so, the initial scope was going to be smaller. I think I suggested a budget of $125,000 or so. And after getting some more advice from brother priests and from parishioners, we decided to expand the scope of the renovation here to include a new floor, new lighting, the beautiful ramp that's permanent and wide. That's almost my favorite part of the whole thing. I don't know about you, but that ramp, if you went down the old one that was half of the width and made of wood and creaked, it just wasn't nice at all. We added accessible doors with buttons on the southeast entryway, which combined with the ramp has made our parish significantly more accessible. And we also saved a bunch of money down here and on all the other projects we've done, thanks to parishioners who did a lot of work themselves, some of whom are here this evening. Thank you for all that you've done. And we worked on the social hall as the first major renovation project because we need to have mass down here while we do the church work. And so it was a priority to get this space ready for having people comfortably down here. And thanks be to God, we're now ready for mass down here. There are a number of projects that need to be done around the parish, but the church work upstairs can no longer wait. And that's why we're doing that work next, among other things. You know, the church impacts everybody who comes to St. Gabriel's directly. It's the best money that we can spend is on the Lord's house itself, because it shows that our priority is God. And it also is what people who visit our parish see when they walk through our doors. So as we open our doors wide to receive more members, and as we see more and more people joining the parish, it's very strategic to have the church, God's own house, looking like it's a beautiful, updated, lovely place to be. I mentioned the church floor. A couple of the items in the church could no longer wait even another year to be done for the work. We were told that the stained glass windows upstairs were in critical condition. I think Paul, our architect, can comment on that in a little bit. And like I say, the floor was popping up this winter, but it's been in sorry shape for quite a while. We had the option of just doing a couple piecemeal projects in the church, but as soon as you do the floor or the windows, you have to set up either scaffolding or bring in lifts. And once you're in there, it's way more cost effective to just do everything at once. So the scope of the work in the church will include really everything that should be done at this time. It's not only cost effective, but it's also good for scheduling. We don't want to close the church for longer than necessary. So we want all the work to be done together. And I'll talk about the major donations that we've already received later in this presentation. Now I'll just give a quick introduction to our team, and I'll then turn the microphone over to Paul. So my name's Father Paul Haverstock. If you don't know me, please talk to me after this presentation, and I'd love to say hi. Among the people who are helping with our renovations, we have here Bill Zerl. Bill, would you stand for a second and face the crowd? Bill and his wife, Heather, joined the parish 3.5 years ago or so. I haven't been here for 5 years yet, and you joined after I got here, so October 2020. Okay, whatever that is. And Bill is overseeing the construction on behalf of the parish. So he's working closely with our general contractors. And Bill also has an engineering background and a lot of experience in business. So he brings a wonderful skill set to this work. Thank you, Bill. Other members of our team include our Director of Sacred Liturgy and Music, Breck McGough, whom all of you know already over there, looking very Breck McGough-ish. And our two trustees, Romaine Bashir, who's here at this table, and Jason Brigham, who's over there on the side. Romaine, will you stand as well? In case you don't know our two trustees, they're kind of the advisors to the pastor in the most important matters of the government of the parish. Our business administrator, Lori Thule, is helping with the renovations, and that's everyone from the parish side. We also have a strategic planning team whose names I don't have here, but who are also serving as advisors to me, and they represent the diverse composition of our parish. On the construction side, our general contractor is Langer Construction, and Josh Schultz is our main guy from there. So Josh has been great to work with, and they were the group that did the work on the social hall, which turned out so well. And then for our architects, we're working with Paul May and Kelly Maston, and it's been very exciting and wonderful to be working closely with them. Just easy people to work with a lot of relevant experience. So thank you all for being here this evening. And now I'm going to turn over the microphone to Paul May, our architect. And remember to write down your questions as we go along so that at the end, we don't have to spend a ton of time waiting for those to be written out. Thank you, Paul. First, it's Josh from Langer. Sorry, my bad.
All right, good evening, everybody. Just a very quick Mile High overview on who Langer is. Yes. So Langer was founded in 1946. 2026 marks an important milestone for us. We're turning 80 years old, which is very important to Russ Zellmer, who is my partner, the president. I'm the vice president and co-owner of the company. Something very unique about Langer Construction is this is basically all we do. So roughly 100% of the work that we do is dedicated to faith-based organizations. Really three buckets, that's ministry or worship spaces, nonprofits, and private education. So this is exactly why we're here today. And about 90% of that work is dedicated to meeting with people early on in the process and really figuring out how to marry scope with budget, which is a major concern here. You have money, but how do we get the most for that money? And so that's really why I've been a team member for, well, a few years now, as we tried to work through a lot of those options. And what does that construction look like? Just a quick background about myself. I am third generation to work for Langer Construction and fifth member of my family to work for the company. And actually, my family just passed 100 years with Langer. So if that says anything about who Langer is to its core, we're just a great group that really enjoys and believes in what we do. You are not meant to read everything that's up here. This is just kind of a ha-ha. But as I stand up here and talk about, I really have a vision and belief in ministry and what we do for ministry. We actually do a lot of church. So we really enjoyed it, and it's a very important part of the company. And then just kind of bearing down on that a little bit more, as this is all of our Catholic experience. So currently we're working obviously with you, Good Shepherd in Golden Valley, St. Hubert in Chanhassen, St. Odelia in Shoreview, and the list goes on and on. So please rest assured that we are trying to help the parish as best we can, bring you to where you want and should be with upstairs.
Thank you, Josh. And Miller Dunwoody has done a lot of church projects with Josh and his team over the years. Miller Dunwoody is a Minneapolis-based architecture interior design firm. We've been around since 1963. I'm the third generation of the leadership of our firm. Kelly and I have only been there for 20 of those years, but we've worked together on many, many projects, some of them that you would recognize, including in North St. Paul, the Church of St. Peter, which is a new 1,200 seat expansion of a church from 1926. And on the right-hand side, both Kelly and I have worked on the Basilica and the Cathedral. And we're ongoing working on the Cathedral right now. Again, a long list of projects that we've done, but we have found in our office that this work is really a ministry for what we do. It's an extension of Kelly and I, what we do for our life. And we also get to work on projects together at Miller Dunwoody. So a number of Catholic churches that range from even small renovations to the cathedral and the basilica that are quite large. And each and every one is really important because we get to work alongside great teams. And this is a great team here that are concerned about the spiritual experience, the spiritual environment as we come to Mass, as we come to meet as community, as we make decisions that will affect our children and our grandchildren, because someone made those decisions 2 generations ago, 3 generations ago, where we are now. So it's really an enjoyable part, but we take it seriously in being good stewards of all that monies that are given and the physical buildings that are here. Kelly's also a great historian and is on the HPC in Minneapolis. So we know all buildings. And when we came into St. Gabriel's and other churches as well, we understand that the areas that have value that are really, really important, like the stained glass, but also really, really important to invest in so that they will last the next 70 years. And so we are going to go, and I think Father's going to come up and we might do a little tag team here to explain the scope of work or the items that are going to be renovated. And I will say right up front that we are not going to show final drawings of what it's going to look like. We're currently in the process of working with your team to finalize ideas and finalize the design and finalize the materials. And rather than show things that are in process, we're going to invite you back and to show the final designs later this summer or in the fall. But we wanted to walk through the areas that will be changed, because it's really important at this time to look at the why we are doing things, from both preserving resources to how it is going to improve Mass. It's going to improve our understanding of our community together. And that's really what a building like this is all about. So this is the current view, and we are just going to walk through a few things of what will be changed. You'll see a lot of things in blue. We are not painting the pews blue. I'll just throw it right out there. What we're using that for is to help highlight the areas that will be changed. And the pews will all be changed, and we'll be removing them. You've spent a lot of time and effort in the social hall and on your site for accessibility, for making moving around easy. And one of the things with the pews are to make it easy to get in and out of the pews. We're actually making the space a little bit bigger between the two of them. And also improving the kneelers so they don't make a lot of noise when they fall down. And they're 70 years old, and we looked at replacing them and repairing them. And at this point, it's really a more cost effective to replace them with new pews that have nice contours on them and work really well. There will be accessible seating all throughout the nave, from the back to the front and in the middle, so that wherever you choose to seat, there's accessible seating nearby. Dotted on the edge, we've talked about the stained glass a number of times. I shouldn't get out of the camera here, I'm sorry. The upper stained glass windows, beautiful, beautiful windows. They tell a great story, but they're as old as the church. They are needing repair. They're starting to bow a little bit. And once they start getting that, they really need to be repaired. So they will be removed. They will be cleaned. They will be re-leaded in areas, repaired. And also the storm on the outside will be repaired. So one can imagine, like the sun coming today, once the windows are repaired and cleaned, just the brightness that will be shown throughout the nave.
And a fun feature of the upgraded windows will be there will be lighting installed so that they shine outwards at night. So it'll be a little night light to the city of Hopkins, which will be a nice way to witness to our faith.
It's always so nice. I think of it as God's beacon to the community, and as people walk by. The floor is going to be replaced. It's got asbestos tile on it that we want to get rid of, but as long as the pews are coming out and we're getting scaffold in there, all new flooring. It will be a porcelain tile floor that is very, very durable, and the opportunity to add some design and texture into it to really upgrade the material to a stone-like feel that would be really reminiscent of a church of this character, but also adding the bringing back some of the historical character of churches that go back hundreds and thousands of years. That's one of the enjoyable things about working with your committee. We have a great building built 70 years ago. But at that time in church architecture, there was often restraint. And some of the things that we were talking about is to add a little bit more detail and a little bit more elements of liturgical design to really enhance the worship experience. You can see it down on both the side aisles. There are columns, and they're currently round, kind of oval, and with ceramic tile. When Kelly and I first walked in here, we were within about 3 years of knowing when the church was built just by looking at the tile on the walls. But also to gain some space for the pews, we're actually going to take off all of the outside. There's steel columns inside, and we're going to make the columns smaller. We're going to make them square. We're going to bring some marble-looking elements to it to, again, enhance and raise the quality of the aesthetic. Also add some more space around the pews. new lighting, really important. And lighting has a lot of rationale, from being able to read when you're in the pews, to being able to illuminate the windows at night, to be able to lead you and have some controls on the lighting, to be able to adjust the lighting for different masses, different liturgies. And so we'll be replacing the lighting, and also improving the sound system and the AV system. Again, something built in 70 years ago didn't have all these things in mind, and our liturgies and our mass needs have improved and require these. And this is a good time to upgrade that as well. The ceiling. The ceiling is going to, not only is the lighting in the ceiling going to be changed, but the ceiling is going to be changed. We're going to have decorative painting on the ceiling. Again, when we walk into a church, as we look at the altar, but we also raise our eyes to heaven, and to add some importance to the ceiling and add some color to it in the lighting. Again, it allows our eyes to lift up, and just those subtle things that are important as you come in. We think about it as we come in, whether we're coming to Mass as a community, or sometimes we come in for just our private meditation. And each of these times, we should have detail and statuary and the stained glass and other elements that can give us peace and a real meditative and spirit.
And if you were at the St. Therese Senior Living Center, which just opened in Corcoran, what was that, 6 months ago or whatever? I know, Bill, you were there, Bill Davies. If you remember the chapel, it had a starry ceiling painted by hand. I thought it was gorgeous. And so that could give you an idea. It won't be that, but something along those lines to just evoke the eternity of heaven.
So are you going to be laying on the scaffold and painting on the St. Gabriel's ceiling?
Maybe before they painted.
We are also going to remodel all of the confessionals, 3 confessionals. They are they're worn, and but also to refinish the wood, to make the confessionals doors a little wider maybe, and but also so that it's comfortable from both sitting, and as we know, the temperature of the outside wall is the same temperature as what's in the confessional, and that will be improved as well. But there's confessionals in the front and the 2 sides, and one in the rear near the baptistry.
And I'm sorry, I was distracted. So if you didn't mention it, or maybe you did, but the best practice for confessionals these days is that there be mysterious sounds. That there be a dividing wall between the priest and the penitent, especially if you have high school students like we do here. It just creates a greater sense of propriety, and that we're just aware of maintaining healthy boundaries and speaking to the priest. That's just an important thing for us, just to feel safe being in that small enclosed space, and to know that we're never giving scandal, even by appearance. So,
Yeah.
So that's that. I'm going to mute mine until I use it, then I won't cause feedback.
Okay. We'll also be improving and renovating the narthex, just as you come in from the street, the narthex before we go into the nave. There's a glass wall, and it also has some of the greenish columns. And so that wall will be, the glass wall will be replaced. They'll actually, so that you can still see in. It's the family room too. I think sometimes in Mass, where you can go out, still be connected to everything that is going on. There will be lighting, improved lighting back there. There'll be speakers back there so that you can hear from what's going on in the Mass, and really trying to make it as narthex spaces are, where you can come in from outside, meet with friends, quiet our spirit, and then go in to Mass as a community. And that's really the importance of that space. So it needs to be wide enough for some of those things to happen. And we'll also be, there's a pair of doors that, the second pair of doors as you come in from the street, those shown on the lower right, those doors will be removed so that it's just smoother moving in. And as we know, the elevator is fully, is there to make that process fully accessible. But again, to make it easily, smoothly, and as a good procession as you walk from outside in and then into the nave.
You probably never noticed those doors before, the ones that are in the lower right, but they're always open. So they just kind of create a bottleneck unnecessarily.
This is Father's view. And also our view as we process out of Mass. But the balcony is going to have a lot of changes up there. The screen, that's the organ pipes that are behind that upper screen. The organ remains there, but that screen will be replaced with another screen that's, again, it's reached the end of its useful life, the fabric that is there. We're also going to be removing the undulating wall, which is shown on the lower right hand, that is below the screen from the organ. It just gives more space for the choir up there. And frankly, there's a couple of columns. It's not a wall that supports anything. It's a wall that kind of helps to separate and hide some things. So we were talking, the good news is the choir area gets bigger, and the bad news is everybody might see what's up there, so it's got to be cleaned up a little bit better. But that's okay. That's good too. The flooring will be replaced. We're going to move the organ console and refinishing the wood panels that are between the choir and the narthex, that blue wall that you see that's right here. So again, both processing in and processing out, always taking time to make improvements to this area, because it's part of our life cycle of coming to Mass and worshiping, giving thanks, and then going out and becoming disciples in the community. The baptistry, remaining over to my left, and that area is going to be upgraded. The flooring, it's carpet in there. It'll be more of the same kind of materials that are in the nave, so that it upgrades it to really what baptistries have always meant to be. They tend to be little buildings actually in Europe by themselves. Ours is connected here, but it also has a great stained glass that will be repaired similar to the other stained glass, so that the light will come in well, and replacing this the lighting in there and upgrading the ceiling as well.
And so we will be we'll be using the baptistry as a baptistry, which is something that we started doing a couple of years ago after not having done it for many years. And it's going to be really nice. So I'm excited for you to see a final design when we have that follow-up meeting at the end of the summer.
And it's very well placed. I mean, you come into the narthex, and the baptistry is on your left, and it again is a reminder of our own baptism. And then as we step through and come into the nave, the sacristies, they're going to be the back of the house function, so to speak. But
Yeah. Who's been to the sacristy before, out of curiosity?
oh wow,
Must have very good Catholics here to have so many people into the sacristy. Just one.
and with that, there new flooring in there, painting up, refreshing the cabinetries that need to get refinished, and some of the drawers don't quite work real well, and to make it functionally work. And the most important thing, adding air conditioning.
Yeah,
And that'll be on both sides.
it's pretty miserable in the summer if you haven't been for the summer days, so that'll be a nice thing.
Also an important part is we're going to be repairing and replacing the restrooms back in that corner. as well as upgrading the restrooms in this corner, but in the back corner, the two banks of restrooms aren't accessible. And we've spent a lot of time talking about accessible ramps and the elevators and the pews. We want our restrooms to be accessible as well. And what that requires is they need to be bigger and the doors need to be bigger, and you have to be able to turn around a wheelchair in there, and there will be changing tables, and there will be a bottle filler, and there will be all sorts of things like that, which are really important to do. And so it's exciting to do that, and it's also kind of on the path of coming into the nave. Also, we're repairing the ventilation, the lighting in the doors and the restrooms that are here. These ones they're upgrading the finishes. Up there, they'll be knocked down and completely repaired.
Yeah, I think it's when they're both done at the same time. There you go. For those, they'll become 3, I think, individual stalls. So right now, if there's ever more than one person in either of those restrooms, because technically there could be 2 guys based on the 2 fixtures in the men's. I shouldn't know how many women's fixtures there are. There's 2 there too. So you're in pretty tight quarters. I like my privacy in the loo personally, and that's that becomes 3 individual restrooms. So just a little more privacy, a little nicer and accessible. So it's kind of a win-win-win.
I like to say there's dignity in making renovations like that for all of us.
Yeah.
We're there's going to be a lot of HVAC, heating, ventilating, and air conditioning improvements. And we were kind of chuckling at our meeting, but this is actually a photo underneath the pews. And I probably never got this view after I was about 6, but I know that, you know, in my church I grew up in, I was always looking at this. So your children and grandchildren see this view all the time, but what will actually happen is all of those little mushrooms, we call them, will be removed so that the floor will be flat. There'll still be ventilation in there, but again, it's taking the time for easily accessible moving around the nave. It's helpful for cleaning, and but there's many controls in the system, the ventilation system and the air conditioning system. So better controls means less real hot days and less real cold days. Although I think Father will have the only control of what the exact temperature will be. And so get to know him if you want to make any change. I'm just kidding.
That's the current system, I think, that's in there has a number of control valves that are ancient, and the majority of them have been broken for a long time, which is one of the reasons why during the transition months, like in April to May and in October to November, it can get really hot in there. After we do this work, we'll have the ability to minimize that phenomenon.
And we have a great engineering team that has a lot of fine print here that explains all the stuff that's working. Look at Bill, and Bill can explain it to us. My dad could have, he was an engineer, but but it just helps the ventilation all throughout for quality of air as well as temperature. I'm gonna turn back to Josh and have him, because, yep.
Actually, I might do this one.
Oh, you want to do this?
Yeah. Josh, do you mind if I do this one? Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul.
I don't want to have both of your mics.
No, I turned mine off because Romaine whispered that I should just use this one instead of trying to use both at the same time. So good suggestion. Probably from Breck, if I had to guess. Oh, from Ronnie. Smart man. By the way, if you need a lawyer, Ronnie Santana has just gone into practice for himself. And yeah, so hopefully you don't need a lawyer though. Okay. So just to talk a little bit about the budget for this project. So the total budget for the work in the nave, which, as you know, is the main area of the church, that's where the pews are. The narthex, which is where we gather right at the end of Mass, or when you're signing up for something at the end of Mass, just behind the glass, and the entryway really on Main Street. The baptistry, which is also the elevator room, the entryway on Main Street, and the bathrooms. The total budget is $3.8. As an M, $3.8 million. And just to give you some examples of the projected costs. So the stained glass windows, is it 10 or 12 that we have up there? I should know that off the top of my head, but whatever it is, they are incredibly expensive to repair, and they have to be repaired or they become irreparable and they would have to be destroyed. I personally really like our stained glass windows and think that, as was said earlier, they're an important artistic part of our church, but it's almost $750,000 simply to have them removed and refurbished, because to refurbish them is really to take them all apart and to put them back together again with a significantly new frame. Not that I know anything about that, I'm just saying it's a big deal, and there's only one company that really does it. So to do the floor, when you look at these numbers, when I look at these numbers, it's like you could buy 2 houses for that, but then you realize you actually can't anymore, especially not in Hopkins. But things are expensive, and especially when you're in an industrial building. So the floor being, 666, whatever that is, $660,000. Pews, just over 300,000. New lighting and electrical work in the church, $250,000. A new sound system up there with live streaming capabilities enhanced at $200,000. HVAC work, $150,000. So it's a lot of money. And fortunately, God blessed us with the sale of our other church of the old St. John the Evangelists. And a major part of that budgetary number will be taken from the sale proceeds of St. John the Evangelist, which is actually very fitting and very beautiful, because when you think of the sale of a church, you realize, well, to build a church in the first place, it took sacrifices on the part of people of faith. So it's sort of an incarnational legacy that has been created by the faith of people. And so to sell a church, as we all know, it's a sad thing to do. So what's beautiful here is that those sacrifices of previous generations are now being reinvested into our church so that future generations will be blessed by those same sacrifices. So there's something beautiful. In addition to those sale proceeds, God has sent us some very unexpected blessings. So before we announced the renovations, I had several people approach me without any solicitation, and they pledged some support for various work around the church. In fact, the total support that has been pledged by people up to this point without me asking for $1 is well over $1 million that we've already received. It's because of those people who on their own stepped forward that, for example, we will be completely redoing the bathrooms and improving them. And also that we already have an excellent start on funding the beautification and the renovation of the sanctuary, which, as you note, we did not specifically cover yet, but which is an obvious part of the church up front because of that sponsorship. We're already well on our way to funding the renovation of the sanctuary. So I just mentioned that because it is a major blessing as a priest to have people on their own decide to support important work like the kind of stuff we're doing here. And it's my hope that there may be more people who are interested in sponsoring various aspects of the work that we've just described, like a stained glass window, which, as I've said, are very expensive, or pews, sound system. Maybe you want to sponsor the mushroom vents. I'm sure that's going to be a hot item. We'd even give you one of the mushroom vents to keep for your own if you want it. But every bit of support, which, as I said, was for me unexpected and unasked for, every bit allows the parish's own resources to extend that much further. And in some cases, it also allows us to do beautiful finishes and sort of premium choices for materials and other things that we wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. So that's a real win. When we have our follow-up presentation to this in the late summer or the beginning of fall, we'll have even more accurate pricing information about what this work is costing, and you'll be able to see beautiful pictures of what the church will look like. And indeed, as we go forward, we'll be able to stop upstairs and see the progress progressing, so to speak. So I just wanted to share that, first of all, to celebrate God's goodness. Secondly, to anonymously thank those people who have come forward and offered that amazing support. And then third, just to invite you to ponder on what the Lord might be inviting you to do. And now I will gladly turn the microphone over to Josh from Langer, our general contractor. Thank you.
So in looking at a project like this, we have to start at some point putting a schedule together. Now, you can't hold us, we can't hold ourselves to the dates here, but we have to, in talking to the group, see, is this feasible to accomplish over a certain period of time, whatever that time is. And so when we sat down, we looked at if we were to start in design in March, so it's already begun. Roughly that's going to take March to July of this year for design and permitting. If everything goes great with the city and this group continues to move along at a good pace as we are now, we could look at potentially beginning demolition upstairs following removal of the pews in July of 2025. Probably late July, mid-July, somewhere around there. There's a lot of give in this schedule because we don't yet know, but this is best case scenario. This is kind of where we sit. And so that will take roughly a couple months, maybe a month of demolition before we start some of the actual finish work. So starting to work on the floor, the abatement, the stained glass process. It's a very large number, but it's actually an incredibly long process. The stained glass actually controls the schedule that you're looking at here. So once they remove it, it's roughly a 4 to 5 month process for them to refurbish the windows off site, to fix them, re-lead them, repaint them, etc. So in the construction, really following demo, heavy duty construction starts in the fall and goes through the winter. Obviously, we would love to improve on these dates, but these are really rough dates right now. And so as Paul, Miller Dunwoody, and our team work together, we can start to finalize some of these dates, and we can present another schedule as we meet here late summer. This schedule will continue to be updated throughout the process. Any questions obviously can be funneled along to us. The big thing is just keeping you in operation throughout, making sure that any important dates that you out there are worried about, we are aware of and we'll work around. So there should be no issues. We do this every single day with parishes such as yourself. So any questions specifically regarding the schedule, put it on the note cards and we can address it at the end.
Thanks, Josh. So what will happen during construction? Masses will be held here in the social hall. Langer and all of the workers will make sure that we're all kept safe with good, I can't use your fancy words, but putting up barriers and other things, temporary partitions, etc. This is my favorite point. Inconveniences will help us grow closer to God and each other. And I really believe that. I'm not just saying that, and that's not just spin. If you like The Lord of the Rings or any other great work that involves more than one main character, but a group of people, hardships unite people. And being inconvenienced is a hardship, and it will unite us if we allow it to, which I know we will. So I'm excited for that. It'll be kind of like going back in time to the early days of Christianity when people met in their houses and in the catacombs and in other places. And they didn't have pews. They definitely didn't have kneelers. And they didn't have microphones either. I don't know how they survived without microphones, but I guess the homilies were shorter. And we'll get periodic tours of the work that's going on upstairs. So that should be a pretty neat experience for us as we go through that. Our offices will remain open, and we will be grateful as God continues to provide for our parish as he has. Before we conclude the presentation, just to give a nod to some future projects that are already being investigated as we immediately prepare for the church work, working with Miller Dunwitty and our architects, Paul and Kelly, and with Josh, we're currently doing a study of the entire campus and assessing the other work that needs to be done, especially the parking lots, repaving, restriping, refencing. There's a lot of deferred maintenance. The church is a big part of that, but it's certainly not the only part of it. Eventually, we'd like to make the office main entrance, which is shared by the Adoration Chapel. We'd like to rework that so that it's just easier to find your way around and that it's a beautiful experience. We could use some major exterior landscaping and improve signage. It's been suggested that the Adoration Chapel itself be more deeply beautified. That's sort of we'll see where that goes. Only God knows. But we're looking into all of those things. So at this time, I'm going to invite you to just take a few minutes at your desk if you haven't had a to collect your thoughts, to write down questions. We'll have people coming around to grab your note cards. Once your questions are on them, please include your name on the note card so we know who asked the question and we can have the opportunity to follow up more. If you need to leave before the questions and answers, you're welcome to do that. You might as well stand and get a stretch break and get a little drink or a bar in the back there if you'd like as well. And in about 5 minutes, no, probably about 10 minutes, we'll begin going through the questions. Thank you. All right. You made it. Thanks.
Is one of your parishioners invited into this? It's
Janet Clement or Janet Krozak. Janet Krozak. She's in the back. She's serving. In fact, that's her next to the screen in the back wearing the black thing. I guess she's walking to the kitchen right now. That's her there. Different Janet? Well, it might have been Janet Clement, in which case. Oh, there's Janet. I guess. It will be. So you're able to go and look at it and I'm sure we can make that a bit remote. Okay. I will let you know. What's that? Yes. Write a card for me. Thank you. Barbara, nice to see you. Nice to meet you. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to the overview. No, yes. Yeah, absolutely. We just, I think, next. I know. All the churches are different. It's important. We would like to talk about that.
That's on.
Thank you for being here. It's a word. So we'd like to come and sit back down and
I'm not good at the whistle. Where's Peg Lindgren? Hey, Peg. Ah, Peg, God bless you. You got quite a whistle. So, thank you everyone for the great questions. I'm just going to start to go through these bit by bit. If you're in the back there, just just speak in whispers. And yeah, thank you. Great questions and very much appreciate the participation here. First question. Why are you such a great priest? I don't know.
Nobody is.
No, nobody is. I made that one up. That was a lie. That was a lie. Now this was a question. This is from Dale Alquist. He said, Dale, by the way, and his wife Laura are two of our newest members here at St. Gabriel. Dale is actually the founder of Chesterton Academy, and you may have seen him. You may have seen him on EWTN back in the day on his TV show about G.K. Chesterton. So he's kind of a big deal. Okay. So his question is, what kind of guarantees do we have that the homilies will be shorter during the renovation? You know, the most important things in life don't come with guarantees. So, okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that question. Okay, Marlene Smith, removing the floor. How safe is it really to go to mass downstairs while that is being done? I think we're referring to the asbestos abatement. So, Josh, would you like to?
Sure. There is zero concern. As this was being abated, as this space in the social hall was being abated, we follow all proper guidance from the state of Minnesota. We're actually inspected on our temporary enclosures. It is an enclosed system, meaning that nobody is allowed in unless you are properly tie backed with a suit and they have respirators. We actually will bring in specialized HVAC units to help with removing the air from the space so that it doesn't kind of linger. Also, we use a special type of abatement procedure to where it is all mechanically removed with grinders so that there is no heat or adhesives. And as soon as you bring heat to asbestos, that's when it gets in the air and it gets really, really dangerous. And so there's zero concerns, none whatsoever.
So you would feel safe with your children and family being
Down here
the entire time?
Yes. I will give you my 2 daughters for that period of time.
I can accept that. And we got the same question from another parishioner, Matt Gerlach, who is another one of our newest members, by the way, along with his wife, Michelle, who I don't see here this evening, but welcome to the parish as well to you, Matt. And Matt is the headmaster of Chesterton Academy itself. I'm just going to read the ones that are maybe more beneficial for everybody to hear, and then we can talk about the sewer project and other stuff on our own. But will the adjustable lighting in the church be adequate for liturgies needing dimming? That is very important to me, that the lights be well controlled. Paul, would you like to offer a comment on that?
Yes, I think the answer will be, in current church design, you want that option to be able to adjust it for different events, different masses. The vigils are lower and down as you come on in, and then and up. And so, and the lighting will be good for reading this aloud. Other things, yes.
Yes. When I was at St. Paul Seminary in St. Paul, they had advanced lighting controls, but Monsignor Callahan, who was the rector at the time, he always, right before Mass began, would press the button that had a note next to it saying, "Don't press this button." It was the 100% on button for the lights. And so right before Mass, it was as if the entire chapel became radioactive. So we won't be doing that. And then you had asked, one other good question to share. What will the social hall look like? How will this affect daily masses, for example? Beauty, reverence, etc. We will be constructing a sanctuary area here. The blue tape is a tentative outline for that space. Some generous parishioners have offered to help construct a small platform, but about this size, not that small actually, so that the stuff going on in the sanctuary area will be more visible. We will have the Blessed Sacrament here in the social hall as well. Things will be as reverent and beautiful as possible. The most important factor in that is that everybody's trying to pray, including the priest who's saying mass. So I'll do my part, you do your part for that. And there will be some things which require probably, which will be less than ideal, but to the extent possible, we are going to be making this a reverent space. We measured out the chairs layout here, and we can fit over 500 people in the social hall. I had no idea that this was that big of a space. When the chairs are in a comfortably spaced, spread out area. I believe our current tentative plan is that half to 2/3 of the social hall, this side of it, will remain with the chairs set up as they will be on a Sunday, on a weekend, so set up for mass. And then the back third will be more of a flex space where when we don't need the chairs, there'll be more of just the table set up and people could gather there for other events like during faith formation or for other things. So that's a long answer, and that's not even really answering, that's scratching the surface, but that's a good start. Claudia, you have nice cursive. When you say pews will be accessible front to back, does that include room for wheelchairs, etc.? Paul, would you comment on that?
Yeah. Yes, there will be areas for wheelchairs. There'll be cutouts, I call them, along so that you can not only have a wheelchair or someone in a walker, but you can have a companion seat. So that the first part, so that you can actually swing your knees over to assist someone that's in a wheelchair. That's pretty standard in the industry. And one of the things that we want to be able, as I said, to have accessible areas for pew seating throughout the church, both from the front, in the middle, and the back, so that you can people tend to move and sit where they thrive. And that's important.
And the final layout of how that will look is still being finalized. So honestly, Claudia, at some point, I would love to just connect with you and talk about that since you bring an important perspective to that question. Will the elevator be in use during the renovations, or will we need to use the east door as mass will be in the social hall? Just wondering if we will have access to the front entrance. Yeah, to use the elevator.
Yeah, we'll make sure it's fully accessible.
Yeah, so the main street level elevator level will be accessible the whole time, I guess, then. I mean,
Yeah, there might be a few breaks where there's a 6-hour down period
Yeah.
or something, but yes, it will be usable.
awesome. Okay, oopsie daisy. No name, so it's getting waited for later. Harriet Stifter, what happens to the pews? I need a special place. Will the new tile be slippery? Well, we have specifically been making sure that the tile, would you like to comment on that, Paul?
The tiles will not be slippery. There's coats for everything. And there's a slip resistant requirement that all floor materials have. And so these will meet that requirements. And I think I don't know about the pews. Good question.
Yeah, and for the pews, currently the cross aisle, more than halfway back in the church, the back section of pews don't have a kneeler, or it's called a modesty screen.
Yep.
But that's like the standalone kneeler in the front of a row of pews. We are planning to keep it that way with the new setup, so there will be a row of pews that don't have a kneeler. You can go to across the aisle to the pews in the front section, and there's a kneeler in the back of that, so you can still kneel. But for people who would just prefer to easily get in and out of a pew with no barriers whatsoever, just like it is at the cross aisle now, it will remain. Make sense? Yeah. Marlene Smith, will this presentation be available separate from the video? Yeah, I think we'll try to make this PowerPoint deck available if you want to review it on your own time. Okay. I need one more hand, a third hand or arm, but that would look weird. Mark Steves, will the social hall be usable for events during this time? Excellent question. So, Lori, do you want to take a shot at that?
Well, it has to to be available for daily mass. So if something else is in here, it would have to be later in the day and have to be returned to the mass setup.
Yeah,
So it depends what it is.
mass will get priority for the use of the social hall. Obviously, during the week, mass is from about 11 until about 1, if you include the confession. So at other hours, in theory, the hall would be available for some things. However, we're not planning on having events that will require all of the chairs to be moved and then to be brought back in regularly, because that would be a huge pain. So for example, funeral luncheons will probably not be happening during this time, but funerals will. But the luncheons itself, it would be really challenging to do that. Romaine. Eric Duffert, by the way, who's our operations manager, he's on that question and we're still developing plans, but he's, wait, Eric, you're here. Do you have any comments? I'll let Romaine, soon to come from Eric. You heard it first here.
Mark, are you still here? I talked to Lisa Rogers, and she doesn't have any large thing planned while we're having mass down here. She indicated if there was a time she just needed a smaller space, it would be back there. So we've got it covered.
Who is doing the glass windows? Gay T. Palmer, the only company that kind of does that work, basically.
Yeah, over 100 years, it's all
Over 100 years old, it's all they do, and they do it well. Okay. Is that Men's Warehouse? That was a courtesy of Mary Ilgen. Thank you, Mary. This card is not named, so we'll save that for later. Well, lower stained glass windows, question mark. We're thinking about it. But they may not need to be repaired at this time. Yeah. Upper and lower windows, same question. Deacon Daryl, where will the baptisms take place during construction? Well, our baptismal font is mobile, so I'm guessing we'll move it down here and the baptisms will take place in the social hall, just as mass will take place in the social hall. Deacon Daryl, thank you for the question. Deacon does many of our baptisms for us, for which I am very grateful, just as Deacon Francis does many of the burials after funerals, for which I am also very thankful. Let's hear it for our deacons. Mike Dickinson asks, what happened to the old library? Where is the new one? Well, there's a controversial question that I'm happy to address. So the books from the old library are in boxes. I forget exactly where they are right now, but they are, I think they're in the lower level of the parish offices in a storage room there. We will eventually be putting them somewhere. Some of them may go back into the room formerly known as the library. Some of them may go into the room that's across the hall from the Adoration Chapel. This room, now that it's been renovated, among other things, will also serve as a regular meeting room for small groups, other parish meetings, a bride's room before weddings, possibly a small meeting room for families that are here before a funeral. And so it'll be a multi-use room, and it seemed strategic to have less of the space along the walls taken up by books. But I think we may put some back there. As far as where the rest will go, ask me again. Okay. Laura Alquist, don't the narthex doors keep things warm in the winter? No. They're always open. So even if they did keep things warm, they don't, but no, I don't, no. Josh?
No, there's significant ventilation out to where having the doors closed wouldn't do anything.
Thank you, Laura. Deacon Francis, does the parking lot need a fence? Great question.
That will be part of the study.
Yeah, so we're having our architects do a full study of the parking lot.
Yes.
So
Parking lot, the crosswalk, the curbs, access.
Coordination with the city.
in coordination with the city. So the answer is we are looking into that. Rico Case says, no face-to-face confession? Question mark? In the renovated confessionals, the design has not been finalized. I just met with the rector of our cathedral, former pastor of Holy Family, Father Joseph Johnson, who I'm sure many of you know. They're going to be redoing the confessionals at the cathedral. At least they're looking into that. There is no one clear, excellent design for confessionals. There's pros and cons of whatever you do. No matter what we do, there will be an option for at least you to see the face of the priest, and for him to see your face. It will probably be through some kind of a clear plastic membrane, but it won't just be an open space sitting together. And if you want to know why priests think that's important, please read our local newspapers from approximately 2012 through 2014, or Boston's newspapers from about 2002 to, anyway, you get the drift. So some kind of a barrier there is important, because priests could be accused of doing things in the confessional, and so you want some insurance there. What's that? No. It will be a fully acoustically.
Privacy of the professional is improved as well. It's like talking across a table, but there will be a screen so that you can be visually private.
Kyle Michaels. Is your sister here this evening? Okay. Well, God bless you both. Kyle says, are there examples of the liturgical designs / painting being considered? So the last time we did one of these meetings, it was like 2 years ago. Gosh, time has flown. We showed some very preliminary renderings. I was not happy with how they looked, and I was not happy to be showing them as I thought about it after the fact, but I didn't know about it before the fact. In any case, my point is we didn't want to show pictures until they were finalized, and we don't have finalized pictures of those designs yet. So as we make more progress, we will have renderings, and at that meeting that we've promised to have somewhere around the end of the summer, the beginning of the fall, you will see beautiful renderings of the liturgical architecture. And as a note, if you ever touch anything in the church sanctuary, at least in our archdiocese, it's a rule, local legislation, that the parishioners must be shown that design, and there must be an opportunity for feedback. So when we meet in the fall, I will be asking you for your thoughts and feedback on the design. So just to let you know that that's a necessary part of that work, and we're just not quite there yet as far as having something to show you tonight. Your other question was, is the angled ceiling going to be flattened when you paint it? Nope, it will remain angled. It was designed for acoustical reasons that way, and so it will still be angled. And will we fix the broken windows around the church? For example, the side entrance stairs. Where are you thinking? Oh. Yeah. We will call them the Kyle Michaels Memorial Window Repair. Yeah, we will. Josh says we'll work it in. So there you go. Peg Lindgren, fire floor, leveled out. Is there a question? Oh, Breck, would you comment on?
In your steps, and that's right. So one of the main issues that we're addressing the choir loft at all, you saw where we're going to be removing the brick partition. Oh, do I need to be? Sorry. Hi. One of the reasons that we're removing the brick partition is to create a better walkable space, also more space for people with wheelchairs or different scooters for accessibility. And so part of that will also include leveling out the space where singers are. We had a trip and a fall during Holy Week Mass, But this has been an issue, and thank God for the two men who put together the railing that's up there now. Because I would probably be dead otherwise, because when I'm conducting, sometimes I fall back on that thing, and I'm very thankful that it's there and it's so sturdy. So it's a little bit perilous up there right now between a tightness of space and uneven floor. So yes, to answer your question, we will be flattening that out. Oh, you still want to, you want to be the one to sledge it down? Okay, well.
Also from Peg, are the new pews going to be spaced better? Should actually be betterly because it's an adverb. I'm just kidding. Yes, the new pews will be spaced better. Our current pews from back to back are spaced at 32 inches. The industry standard is 36. Out of a desire to not lose too much seating, we're going to be spacing the pews at 34.5, so splitting the difference. It will be much more comfortable getting in and out of the pews. People who are tall will no longer be knocking the kneeler down behind them in the back pew. And the end caps of the pews, if you can picture the current ones, they're just a rectangle. And so they take up a lot of space as you file yourself into the pew. The new end caps will be more of an L shape, so it'll be easier to get in and out without bumping into things. Does that make sense? Yes. Will the lighting be directional? Is irritating being in choir and looking at lights? Good. Well, that's good to know. Well, we'll make sure that we remember that we need to take into account how the lights might be shining into the choir. Thank you for saying that. This is a great reason to have these kind of conferences or presentations, to hear that kind of stuff. Chuck Romportal. Where are you, Chuck? Thank you, Chuck. Huge acoustic. Oh, wait. I think it starts on the front. In the choir loft, the undulating wall behind the choir was not original. Oh, interesting. Chuck is our local parish historian, by the way, in case you didn't know. Chuck, that's true. I'm not just making that up, but he knows a ton about the history of our parish. The undulating wall behind the choir was not original. It was added after the choir realized that the back of the loft underneath the pipe chamber was a huge acoustic dead space. The choir couldn't hear themselves sing, and the sound of the choir did not project well into the nave. When considering ways of creating more space, keep the acoustic impact in mind also. Well, it's not a question, just a comment. Okay. Breck, have you heard that? Our music director is taking that into account. So. We did have an acoustician come in and do a study of the church, and we were told by the acoustician that removing that wall would not, right? It wouldn't have a significant impact on anything. Based on the other things we're also planning to do. Thanks, Chuck. Also, different Chuck Smith. There you go, Chuck. Will there be a piano in the balcony or at the front of the nave? Handicap parking improvements. Oh, those are two questions. Piano in the balcony or at the front of the nave? Yes. Right? You heard it first here. But not in the nave. Did anyone know why the church nave is called a nave? I know that you must know, Dr. Alquist. Yes. Navis. Thank you, Andrew, our director of evangelization. Navis is Latin for boat, and a traditional church ceiling is shaped like the bottom of a boat. There you go. Handicap parking improvements. As we mentioned, we're doing a study of the parking lots. And so we want whatever restriping we do and other accessibility improvements to be part of a larger plan instead of just restriping. Do you have anything more you wanted to add to that, Josh?
No, working with Paul, it will be a complete overhaul potentially of everything outside of the church.
My question was more, right now, the handicap parking we have, that's to the church.
Yeah.
The west side of.
Oh, the west side of the church. Well, that'll be part of the study that we're doing. Yeah. AV system. Arlene, I think. Will someone who knows more about AV than the people that did this be involved in the decisions making for the church? Comment on the company that we have begun working with for the AV system. Thank you for making the journey down here to the front.
Yes, so we are working with the firm AVE, and they have done many church AV projects, most recently St. Michael and St. Michael. And the system that they are putting in is designed specifically with intelligibility as the important factor. And so we've talked a lot. The man who's actually putting it in that's designing it is a person who wears a hearing aid. And so he's very sensitive to sound systems and the way that they affect people with hearing issues. And so that was one of the big things that we talked about the most was making sure that when the liturgy of the word is being proclaimed, that people can actually understand it. And so that's what we're going to be focusing on. Really excited to share more information about that as they finish their design.
Thank you, Brett. Will you also?
Yes. This is from Laura Alquist. Hello. Are there going to be any acoustical improvements, not just the sound system, but structural changes? That will depend largely on the final design from AVE. But currently we had a acoustical team come and look at the church, and really they wanted us just to change some of the actual AV itself. So when we've had mass in there without using any of the AV equipment, when you just sing in there, it's actually a beautiful space as far as like singing. So that was the other. So one half is we want to make sure spoken word is very clear. The other half is we don't want to deaden at all the beautiful acoustic of a cappella singing that happens in there every day. So yes, definitely making sure that doesn't happen. Yes. So yes, they're an exceptional firm, but one of the things with the multi-directional speaker system that they have is that the actual sound from the choir loft as it's amplified will be coming from the direction of the choir loft. So it'll be a more natural acoustic in there. So when you hear my voice make an announcement, it's actually going to be coming towards you from the back, or when I sing, all the music will be coming from the direction that it's being projected. So it'll be a much clearer and more perceptible sound in there. So yes.
Thank you, Brad. We just had one come in from Reinhardt Ebnet, the oldest altar server at our parish. And the most experienced. God bless you, Reinhardt. Where will the temporary sacristy be? It will be in the room formerly known as the library and now known as the lower level meeting room. And to anticipate your next question, if we have two priests hearing confessions during daily or after daily mass, as we currently do on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, where will that take place? And the answer, I think, will be one will be in the sacristy, so they'll have to wait for the moving arounds to be done. The other will use the thing back there, the kitchen utility room. Yeah. And then are we thinking about a sprinkler system? Reinhard, are you worried about dropping the incense?
No.
Josh, would you comment on this? Paul, would you comment on this?
Looking at a sprinkler system, one of the things is that since it's really it's a renovation and we're not expanding it, we're not required to do a sprinkler system, and we've evaluated costs and they're quite expensive. And I think there are other elements that we'll be doing from the fire alarm system so that it covers the safety and being able to get out of the church in that quick time.
All of Gorman need a conference with architects.
We started already.
What's that?
We started.
Oh, you wanted a conference with Paul May. Excellent. Well, you two will get along like two peas in a pod because you're also an architect, in case you didn't tell that to Paul May. Okay, there you go. Nice connection. Okay, now we're to the cards that don't have names on them. Shame on you if you didn't write your name on your cards. Okay, just kidding. What meeting rooms will be available during the renovation? Library? That's a great question. So Eric Dufford is kind of spearheading the effort of capturing what rooms will be available. I'll mention one thing, which is that the convent, starting next month, will be basically fully rented out except for the room at the southeast entry. So we'll actually be receiving some income from the convent, which will be a blessing for our budgetary purposes. It's not going to make a drastic difference, but it will be something good, and the whole building will be utilized, which is better than having it sit partially empty all the time. 2 of the 3 tenants are in this room, but we'll be announcing those details in a bulletin article soon. So, good. So Eric will be sharing more information about the rooms that will be available for meetings. Will the old pews be repurposed for another church? Comment on that? Thank you, Mrs. Specken, for that humble confession. Not the only confession that's been made within the last month, but we won't explore that other one.
No, we're working with a local company here called Wonder Stash, whose purpose is to try to repurpose wood instead of seeing it thrown away. So they're interested, they're gonna come out. Obviously, they did have one church that they did recently, was what we're calling pews. They were an MDF type, not fancy. And they arranged to actually have another church acquire and use those pews. So whether that will happen with our pews or not, I don't know, but it would most likely be at least repurposed for a good use instead of disposed of.
God bless you, Bill. Bill has been one of the most generous helpers since I've been here. Thank you for that.
I can answer this one. I can answer that for you. I have some inside information on that. And I will be participating in removing the pews. So if you want to get together with me and tell me exactly what you want, we'll make sure you get it.
Really affordable price. What is the convent being used for now? We just covered that. Are the offices accessible? Well, the main floor of the offices are accessible, and ish, yeah. The upper level is not accessible. There's no way to get up there except the staircase. The lower level is not. Well, the lower level is accessible through the social hall, through that door over there into the blue wonder zone. But the main floor of the offices are accessible. Okay. Thank you, Jane. What kind of wood will the new pews be? An organic kind of wood. We're looking at oak. That's kind of the standard. Our current pews are white oak, which is actually a premium kind of oak. We may go for red oak, which is currently more less. Very durable.
Be staining them.
But we'll be staining them so they will end up looking how we would like to look at them. Is this about the pews?
Yeah.
Well, we had 3 different companies come out who, among other things, either make new pews. Actually, they all made new pews, and they also occasionally did refurbishing of pews. All 3 said, we cannot refurbish your pews. So that is why we're not doing them. So if at least we can't do it for anything remotely within your budget. So it would be like if we wanted to pay twice as much to keep our pews rather than to get new pews.
You just donate.
And-
refurbish.
Yeah, so we don't know if they will be refurbished or used by another church. Bill was giving an example of what happened in another situation. This company exists to try to help old wood not go to waste. What's the company called again? Lumber Stash. Okay. Getting rid of steel lights by windows, like the uplights in the bowls, I think we're talking about probably. Yes, getting rid of those. Pews should be offered to other parishes. Asked and answered, basically. I mean, yeah. If somebody wanted to spend, anyway, asked and answered. It's not economical for another parish to refurbish them, but if somebody wants them, we'll gladly give them. Last question I have here, plans. Okay, I'm gonna do three more questions and then we'll call it. 5 more questions and then we'll call it. Okay. Any plans to improve access through self doors up to the nave? That would be that door over there going up the stairway. No, there are no plans to improve that access. Do we anticipate a capital campaign to fund the renovation? The renovation of the church itself, which we are beginning this summer, will not involve a capital campaign. How will the nave change in area and capacity for parishioners? I'm glad you asked, because capacity is a big thing. At Easter, we had 780 people at the Spanish Mass, and for the last 2 months, we've been averaging 600 or more at this, or 550 or 600 at the Spanish Mass. So it's been booming. And honestly, and I'm saying this sincerely, after the immigration stuff that's going on, more Latinos started coming to the Spanish Mass rather than less. And I just told them this last Sunday that I think a reason for that is because when Latinos experience trouble, they turn to God. So I thanked them for that. And I told them they better keep coming over the summer. So, so as far as capacity goes, Bill, do you have the numbers off your top of your head? I'll let Bill answer that question.
The big number is how wide is everybody, right? So we use.
I'm working on it.
We use, we talked to obviously the pew people, and there's different standards used for the width. Like when we use these chairs in here, they're about 18 inches wide. We could get 524 people in this social hall. When we do the calculation for the pews, we're kind of working with 24
Inches.
24 inches. And I think, as I'm paying attention to Father's homilies, they'll sometimes get long, so I start calculating with the people. And so we use 24 to kind of have a gauge about what we were changing. So our current one that calculates out to about 600, approximately 600, using that 24-inch measurement. With the new layout that we have so far, we drop about 50 spots using that measurement in order to space them out a little bit more and add the other features. So that's a 24 inches, so that's 550 some people supposedly, approximately, at that spacing. And then if you have a busy mass and you can get them down to 18 inches, you can probably get up to close to 700.
Yeah, and kids take up less space than adults generally, so if you have more kids, we'll have more space. Okay. What meeting rooms, we already did that one. Parking lot, planting trees, Hopkins has for use. That is not a complete sentence. Okay. We, Josh?
This question also goes to the site plan that we'll put together with Paul. It will take a little bit of time to develop, but the goal of this site plan is not to act for specific individual things, but look at it collectively as a whole site and make sure that it meets all of the needs of the parish for many years, along with working with the city of Hopkins and the requirements that they have. So it's a longer process, a little bit drawn out process, but in the end, we'll not only get the approval of the parish, but also the city of Hopkins, and make sure you have a beautiful space outside.
All right, I don't know why I saved the like toughest question for last, but that's just the way the cookie crumbled. It's a math problem. It says, and it's not named, so whoever you are, shame on you. 3.8 million total minus 1.0 million donors equals 2.8 million left. But how much from sale of old church? So how much still needed to raise? I think the question is getting at, if we've already had over $1 million contributed by very generous individuals, then the $3.8 million budget number I shared seems to come down to 2.8. That's actually not entirely true. Some of those donations were for the sanctuary, and the 3.8 number did not include an estimate for the sanctuary work. So I don't have a number for that, and I don't know how that will work out at this time. I think it's a question that I would prefer to answer when I have more budgetary information about the final cost of stuff for the construction, because a lot can change. As I think I probably said from the pulpit around the time of the sale of the Interlochen campus, it is my hope that some of the sale proceeds are saved so that we can continue to receive a high interest return on them and help use that money to help fund all of the future needs of the parish, which only God knows what those will be. So it would be my preference not to fully exhaust the proceeds of the sale, but to save some of that money. However, here I stand, having already pledged a very large sum of money without having anyone come to me ahead of time with an offer of support, because the work needs to be done, and it seemed just that money from the sale of our other church be used for that purpose. So I am willing to spend that money, but boy, it would be a blessing if we didn't have to blow through all of our funds right away, but could make that money stretch. That is the last question that I received. If your question wasn't answered, feel free to follow up with us afterwards. I think I would now like to conclude with a prayer. Have I forgotten anything before that? Grateful to our team this evening, to Josh from Langer, to Kelly, and to Paul from Miller Dunwoody, and to all of you for being here. In the name of the Father. Amen. Okay. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Saint Gabriel the Archangel, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Have a good night. Feel free to stick around and ask questions if you want.